This is Coach Lee, and I'm going to talk to you about the psychology of reattraction. So it's important to understand that the principles of reattraction are different from the principles of attraction, though all of the principles of attraction still apply. When you're reattracting someone, it can be quite a bit different simply because it has already happened before.
See, where a lot of guys get wrong is they think that certain rules go out the window just because they have been with that girl for so long. So for example, when loss of attraction happens during a relationship and they're trying to reattract an ex, there's this over pursuit that happens. There's too much chasing that happens. Whereas when you're in a relationship, you're more relaxed. You're more, you pull back, you work on your mission, you go to work, you do your thing. There's just every logical thing goes out the window when guys are going through a breakup. And that's why videos like this are important. Understanding attraction is important. Every one of my students that comes into the program has to read because they need to understand, to go back to the mentality of what you need to do in order to look attractive, appear attractive, act attractive, right? And that's a really good point. So it is good that guys are starting to question the whole, what do I do with no contact? Guys are like, okay, is it important to do this? Is it important to do that? And again, it's good because we're making this shift, and it's good.
And when you have already attracted someone, we have to look at what changed. And what's interesting is that the original factors of attraction could still be there. And what I often see is that it's the time and the intimacy that, while a good thing, can be what causes attraction to fall when certain circumstances are allowed to happen. And I'm going to explain. There's a famous quote by Geoffrey Chaucer, and he says, "Familiarity breeds contempt."
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that the more that you're around someone, the more that you experience what it's really like to be with someone, and it happens a lot. It's a daily thing. It happens for years. It happens for months. That idealized image that you had of them originally tends to be shattered, or at least fade significantly. Those little things that they did in the beginning that seemed so cute are now kind of annoying. That's a very common thing that I hear from people. And it's backed up by psychological principles where I've been able to look at some of these studies and PhD research on intimacy and attraction. And so, though this is a matter for another video, one of the keys to maintaining a relationship that can stand the test of time is that the two of you experience new things together and you grow together, and things don't just simply become stale.
So one of the main things I talk about in my original videos is the two things that cause breakups to happen quite often, just with my observations. One of them is insecurity and one of them is complacency. So clearly Coach Lee is talking about complacency here, where the relationship itself has gotten complacent, and where a lot of guys start going down this path of, what about her? Right? I get that a lot. What about her? Why is it always up to me? Because men are leaders. See, this is where my coaching is a little bit different from not most, but many other coaches in this space, where I talk a lot about masculinity and being a leader as a man, and you directing. You're a director. Okay. Women have obviously some input, right? But women are mostly going to follow a man who has a very, on my other channel, I just reacted to a video that was like, that whole thing going around right now. It's like a man is a 6, but he takes like control but the question, it was on Courtney Ryan's channel. You guys can go and check it out. A couple days ago or something like that, maybe a week ago. And one of the questions was, he's a 10 or a 9, but he doesn't make plans. And all of the girls were like, oh, it's like a 4. Oh, I can't stand that. It's like a 2. And it just goes to show you that, like I said, women can give input, but they find it much more attractive to go out with a guy who's like, hey, this is where we're going to go. Let's have a good time. And so many guys are so afraid of putting their nuts in the chopping block. Coach Corey Wayne, I love that. Says that all the time. And just doing it. They're afraid of what that person's going to think or say. So going back, right, this is something that I've done in my relationship personally, is focusing on just always trying to be the leader. And if she has input, okay, listen to the input. And sometimes she has a better idea than I do. And that's the difference. I'm willing to just say, hey, let's do this. And she's like, well, you know what? Maybe let's try this out. Right. And again, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'd rather actually go to a movie. And that's only like 10% of the time that happens. And that's the dynamic.
Now, there's a difference in someone who just gets bored and wants to go off and be with other people or just break up and go see what's out there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about walking on eggshells and trying to constantly come up with things to do so that this other person doesn't get bored. And great relationships are often between people who can just be, who can just exist. Maybe you're just laying in bed watching a movie.
Literally, I ain't going to bullshit. Like 2 or 3 days ago, I was just like lying in bed with my girl, and we literally just talked to each other for like 3 hours, and then I fell asleep. And I know that's like, so many of you guys watch a lot of other content, but that right there for me is the juice of a great relationship. When you guys, like, cause I go to work for 10, 12 hours a day, right? And I'm growing my companies and I'm taking on partners that we're growing companies together now at this point. And, doing websites and blogs, and I have to update my course and do my course. There's so much stuff I'm doing. So I'm working a lot, and it's tough to spend a lot of time together, but that's the point. There's a lot of time to miss each other. And then when we do, we sit in bed and talk for 3 hours, right? And it didn't happen. It's not like we planned that. I was lying down and she joined me, and that was it.
And that's the highlight of the day. And that's fine because you're together. It doesn't have to be some amazing party or some tropical vacation and always having to do things to keep this other person interested. That sounds like a nightmare in a lot of ways. And so that's not what I'm suggesting. What needs to happen so that a relationship can be its best and has the best chance of being long-term is that the people in the relationship, the two people, understand that the circumstances of life, the details, the situations, that those things are not the relationship, that this is about the other person, and that they both will become devoted to the relationship and to each other and to nourishing what they have. And when it hasn't been nourished, that doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. That doesn't mean that you leave the relationship. That means that you turn back toward nourishing it with things that I've already mentioned and that I mentioned in other videos. But let's talk for a moment about reattraction. And so that's where this person has decided they do not want to walk this path with you anymore. And it's where they have not seen things as I mentioned they should. They have not seen things as these circumstances of life are separate, and no matter what happens, we are together and we are going to work through this. When they stop seeing it that way, you can either decide that this is not worth it and that you are going to move on yourself, or you can decide you're going to try to reattract them and then work this out together. And that takes grace and forgiveness toward the other person. But if you decide to do that, that's your choice. And don't let people tell you you're making the wrong choice or that you should just ignore this person and walk your own way. If you feel that it's worth giving it another shot, then that's your business. So here are my 5 steps in the psychology of reattraction. Number 1, exploit being taken for granted. And that's what's happened here. Any breakup, any separation or divorce is where the other person has been taken for granted. The one who leaves is taking the person that they have left for granted. And that means that they're saying, you being in my life is already granted, no matter what situation I'm in. It means you'll be there. You are a given. And so I can do whatever I want. And if I ever change my mind, I can get you back. But they don't think they're going to change their mind. And so even that is not concerning for them at all, that they could be wrong about that. It's an assumption that they just walk with when they leave you. But it extended all the way back into the relationship, at least in the final stages before the breakup. This person took you for granted. And breaking up with you is the ultimate in taking you for granted. And how you exploit that is you show them that your presence is not granted in their life. It's not some wish that's been granted permanently, but it's actually something that is at great risk based on their action.
This is the whole scarcity creates value. That's why I am against the idea of going back to your ex quickly. Okay? In my opinion, you should make them work for it. Okay? You should make them, really, I'm not saying make it so difficult that you're making it so, you're making yourself seem so much, because they are still in power. But to get your power back, it's really about just recognizing your own value and going, you know what? I'm just not going to just give this back to a person who discarded me. That's my opinion. And that's why, for me personally, I never really went back to exes. And this is, first of all, it was their attitude that turned me off, because they were so quickly like, oh, like this was the problem, and all you had to do was work on this and I would have stayed. And I'm like, bullshit. You wanted to go party, right? You wanted to go have fun. So that's where, and again, everybody's situation's a bit different, but for me, I just didn't let it happen quickly, and they got more attracted to me because of that. So,
and how you do that simply is you don't chase them. You don't try to talk them back into your life. You don't constantly check on them, and you don't pursue them. For one thing, this has already been done most likely. Usually when the other person breaks up with someone, that person who's being broken up with will say, I don't want this. I love you. What can I do? We can fix this. And the other person says, no, I don't want that. And so that statement that you will change, that you want this relationship has already been said, and it's already known. So it doesn't have to be repeated. And at this point, basically, you have to, as I say a lot, give them the breakup. And that's how you exploit that they are taking you for granted. You remove yourself from the situation because their assumption is something that they're usually not even aware of. They have to be asked. Mm-hmm. And then when they start thinking about it and talking about it, they will actually say, I kind of think I could just get them back if I wanted them. That's a very common response from someone in that situation when they have to think about it. But it's inside. It's more of a gut level emotion rather than a thought, where they just feel like that because your value's lower and they therefore assume theirs is higher, that just simply because of the math of the situation, that they could get you back anytime and you would gladly take them back. You would be thrilled.
That whole dumper's confidence thing I talked about in previous videos, that's what that is. And usually they just think that, hey, I broke up with you. You loved me. You want to continue the relationship. So it must be easy for me to get you back. And then they sometimes date other people or they just leave you alone for a while. You're sitting there holding the pieces of your relationship in your hands, trying to fix it, trying to get them to see the error of their ways. And guys, I know it's oversimplified, but just don't fucking do that. Seriously. If somebody really wants to come back to you, they have to feel a compelling reason to do that, and only space is going to even give you a shot at that. See, and what I see guys, and this is why I know a lot of guys who watch this kind of stuff, it's the same sort of, rinse and repeat stuff, but the reason why is because we still see the same mistakes happening in the world. There are thousands of people who are looking up no contact and how to get an ex back every month, and they're new people. So the message needs to be the same. The message needs to be that your value, even though they don't see it, is still high, and you need to recognize that. And you're not going to recognize that because you're going to feel like you fucked it all up.
So that's what you have to push against, for starters. The next thing you have to do, step number 2 of how to reattract someone, is that you demonstrate independence. And so what that means is you do things without informing them, without them knowing, and without their help or their company. You go do your own thing. And you see, a lot of the times that will get back to them because nowadays, especially with social media, we are able to follow people. We're able to figure things out, especially if there's mutual friends. Your ex or the person who is wanting to leave you will usually ask people about you. Even if they're not interested yet in getting back together with you, they will ask someone what's going on with you, and they find things out. And if they see independent actions where you are living your life and you're doing your own thing, it's pushing against some of that taking for granted that they did.
Don't get that confused for going out and taking pictures with a bunch of girls and thinking and pretending to act a certain way. Guys, that can backfire too. What it really is about, are you, maybe you're trying to improve your life. So you're like, I'm going to pick up this book and maybe take a picture of it. And, but it really reinforces it if you were somebody that already posted stuff on social media, but most of my audience is male. So what I'm going to tell you guys is they are watching. They are watching. Not yesterday, but the day before, I reacted to Ty X Worldwide, I think his name is. Guy with high energy. Some of you guys couldn't handle it, didn't like it. But his ex-girlfriend was watching, and I'm telling you, so with me, it was just Facebook out at the time, right? And I was still being stalked. And a lot of guys will ask, what do I do when my ex is stalking me? It doesn't, nothing, because that person, it needs to be the one that still inches their way towards you, even though maybe they're avoidant, maybe it doesn't matter. Don't make excuses for them. Don't make excuses for people who hurt you. Okay?
But it's also something that is going to give them the biggest reality check on the breakup. Because before, the two of you were intimate. Hopefully you weren't codependent, but you were choosing to depend on each other, which is called interdependence. When I expect and need something from you and I choose for that to be the case, I am interdependent with you, and it doesn't mean that I'm codependent. So I'm not obsessed and I'm not unable to function if you were to cease to exist. And so when you demonstrate independence, it is a big reality check for them because it shows that you are no longer in that intimate state with them. And you may think, well, how do they not know that if they broke up with me? They haven't thought that far ahead usually. They haven't experienced the reality of it. It's just a concept. And so when they actually have to see it, that's when they can actually feel a negative from it and experience negative consequences instead of just sort of this mirage that they think that they're going to run into. And so independent acts can be as simple as just going out and having a good time with your friends. It can be doing something new, like maybe buying a new car or another car, developing a new hobby.
Buying a motorcycle.
Or finishing a project that you've been working on a long time and you just maybe have been putting it off. But it's something that's new and it can give you basically this different appearance. And I'm not just speaking physically, I'm talking emotionally. You all of a sudden seem different than the person that they took for granted, the person who they were around so much that the familiar part of that bred contempt to where they didn't see you the same way they used to, and that newness had worn off, and now they're seeing something different about you. And see, all these things, this is not what's going to win them back. This is just getting them to reconsider the details, the facts, and the feelings of this situation. It's getting them to take a look at this again, because you don't want to win somebody back just because you're doing something different or you're demonstrating independence. Those are not good reasons to have someone come back to you, because then it's all about performance, and you don't want that in a relationship. Number 3 is that when they start to move towards you a little bit, which is very common, they'll reach out. They'll want to know how you're doing. When they do that, you absorb their momentum. You don't reflect it. And what I mean by that is that when they reach out to you, that you don't say how wonderful it is to hear from them, how much you've missed them, asking if they're feeling differently, things like that. You absorb what they say by casually responding in a similar way to them. If they do say something that's fairly extreme, like that they miss you, that's a good sign. That's good news. But you need to be careful, because if you give it back to them completely, you can actually start sending them back in the stages that I talk about in my video, stages your ex goes through during no contact. You can send them back into some of those earlier stages where they're still relieved and enjoying being away from you because they start taking you for granted.
Like I said earlier, don't make it easy, right? Don't make it easy. Are they consistent with it? Because there's going to be, look, when you're dealing with a woman, she's going to have emotion, going up and down. She's going to miss you, not miss you. And look, some days she's really going to be lonely and really going to miss you, especially if she doesn't have another person in the background. But look, guys, at the end of the day, it is what it is. If somebody is trying to come back to you, well, don't make it easy, but you can slowly let them back. So a good way to go about this is let's go slow, right? So think about going slow in your mind and what you would say if somebody was like, hey, I miss you, I want to come back, or hey, I miss you, blah, blah, blah. You have to think about, because it's so easy and it's almost going to be your default emotion to be like, yes, because you're trying to relieve that pain inside. But the truth is, the truth shall set you free, is you need to go slow. You need to go really fucking slow, because if that person realizes that they can leave and then come back, leave and then come back, because you just make it nice and easy for them to come back, then they're going to continue to take you for granted, like he said earlier in the video. So you have to be careful with that.
Again. And so if you show them, hey, nothing's changed, everything is just as it was, and you can get me back if you want me, then you're actually not doing yourself any favors. And so a great thing to do is to simply respond in a similar way to them and then try to pull it back just a small amount. So for example, if they say they miss you, you can say, I miss you too, but I hope you're doing well otherwise. Just basically to...
Ooh. That's like a subtle,
where you've made it casual, where you're not saying, I miss you too, let's get together, but you're actually pulling it back slightly. And you're not trying to play head games with them. You are demonstrating maturity, because you should be cautious of this person.
Yep.
They left you.
Yep.
They walked away from you. They tossed the relationship aside. You shouldn't be quick to just take them back.
And so many people will jump in the comments and be like, why are you guys playing games? Why are you trying to manipulate? Somebody said that about Chris Campbell not long ago. And I was like, Jesus Christ. You guys don't even know what some of these definitions of what you're saying are. Oh, this sounds so narcissistic. Go watch and educate yourself on what narcissism is before you start commenting that word. You guys ever hear this shit? Oh, that's gaslighting. It's like, okay, do you even know what that means? Because half the people that I hear using that word have no idea what that even means. So guys, don't be those people.
You should be open to it. And you can even say something like that. If they say they want to get back together, you can say, I'm open to that, but I want to take it one day at a time.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Because they need to know that you're not just easily gotten back. They might be able to get you back, but they need to earn you back. That's important. And so when they reach out to you, you need to be patient as far as getting this all back. You don't want to get it all back with one conversation.
Bam. So I'm going to leave it there because I think the meat of the video is there. But guys, realize your worth. Okay, there's a reason why I started my other channel. Okay, and it's not for everybody. It's definitely not for everybody. But that's where I'm trying to shine a light on some of the toxic shit so that the guys that do get into the dating world today, that do go out there, they can realize that, oh, that's not what I want. Because, oh my God, you guys would not believe how many people are trying to change the person that they are with. Oh, I want her to be more X. Girls will say this, I want him to be more X. I want him to have more of a feminine side. I want him to open up to me. No, you don't. You say you do, and then when he does, you're like, oh shit, that's not actually, that's not what I want. So anyway, coaching's down below. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, and if you guys have any questions, drop them down below in the comment section. Pick up the books. They're going to be in the pinned comments and the description box. So if I forget to pin them, that's where they'll be. And I am working on my book. So I'm going to announce it soon. It's not going to be a typical book. That's why I stayed away from writing a book for so long. But then Coach Corey Wayne came out with 2 books, Quotes, Ruminations, Contemplations, and basically it's like point form. It'll be in like dating. It'll be divided by like dating, individual self-improvement and growth, business, or something like that. But it's more of a, if we were at a bar, this is the conversation that I would be, or if you're at a seminar with me, I would talk to you in this way. So that's what's coming. And I'll let you guys know when it's out, when it's done, and it will be, I'll just make sure that it's probably like a trailer on my YouTube. Thanks for watching. Done.